And we are live with you talking the gridiron. Jimmy Pilato, as always, joining me. Darren Breyer, Fat Boy Fadeaway Sports, far into the bench here on Talking the Gridiron for Variety Sports Network. And we got a big show ahead of you, Week 13. We got a snow game going on right now on Sunday night, Jimmy. You know all about those out there in the Rocky Mountains. You're a little familiar with
Oh
those than
yeah,
I am.
snow games are. This is why you play December football. This is why in high school everybody's lucky to be playing in December because this is what can happen. And the fact that we have people saying that outdoor stadiums need to disappear, this is what you'd miss out on. And you're going to sit here and say that it's not good, and then I'm going to turn around and say, go play Madden. If you want to see that many points, go play Madden. If you want to watch football, watch your TV.
Well, we got the snow here. We got 7-3 Bills over the Niners. They just scored. Ray Davis there with the touchdown. And as you see, they celebrate with throwing it in the air here on Sunday night. So Bills Mafia, we'll see if they can deliver the Bills Niners. A big game. Niners, obviously, we talked a lot about that next week. This is kind of a feels like a must-win game for them. It's not, but it feels like it against the Bills. Bills trying to keep up with the Chiefs. We'll get into them a little bit later and how they persevered over my Raiders. So, Jimmy, hopefully we'll be joined by Jordan Maxson as well. I know Rev also is going to be jumping on one way or the other here tonight. So me and you, we go back to school tomorrow. We have to face that reality, my friend, tomorrow. So why don't we kind of get the conversation off here? We'll get off to a good start. Get some football. Kind of maybe get us ready for the week ahead. I don't want to punish you right away with your team, so we're not going to go there with the other team. So I want to go with the afternoon game here to start. The Eagles, they pull away from the Ravens. That was looked at the game of the day. The Eagles again. We're starting to ask that question. I know the Lions keep winning. I mean, at the beginning of the year, we weren't feeling that with the Eagles. I'm starting to kind of shift a little bit. They are looking stronger. The run game with Barkley looks dominant. What was the stat they showed today? Like him and Henry are the only people with 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns at this point.
They're both on pace for 2,000-yard seasons. They're both on pace right now to break Eric Dickerson's 21. I think it's 2105 record for single season rushing title of the entire NFL history. So it was. This was the matchup.
It's running back.
running is back because these are also two guys that are in MVP conversations, and I know that people are going to. It's more offensive player of the year since they're running backs, but when you have two people that are possibly going to be breaking a record that has stood for 30 plus years, a legend of the game, a Hall of Famer, Eric Dickerson, which is fitting because Eric Dickerson's career might be being sacrificed for the season that SMU is having in their rebirth ACC. They're going to the ACC championship to play Clemson for a spot in the college football playoff.
We'll get to that later, though.
Saquon is. It goes back. We posted a video of it today. How dumb are the Giants? Because I was watching the Seahawks game too, and it's not just the Giants. I'm just going to say how dumb is the state of New York when it comes to professional football because you got players going from both the Jets, the Giants. Saquon is the number one running back, probably best player. I mean, AJ Brown said it when he was mic'd up last week. Might be best player in the league. It's not just best player, the best running back. Might be best player in the league. One of the best players in the league. He's definitely top 5. He is the best closer. I said it last week. That dude is something else. He is accelerating what this Eagles team can do behind Nick Sirianni. He is taking away from any of the negatives that the coaching can possibly bring to the Eagles at this point, and they're looking damn good. I agree with you. They at the beginning of the season, I felt like it was a little bit more hollow, but right now, what can I say? They beat the Chargers. They beat the Ravens. They're dominating their division. They have a big lead now because all of those teams are kind of falling off. It seems like everything that we said last year, where they would look like they were going to fall off the cliff and then ended up falling off the cliff after starting 10-0. It's the opposite this year. They can run the football. When Saquon was getting shut, when he was getting shut down, they started turning into Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts can run the football. He can pass. Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert. It's a very solid team. I mean, losing Brandon Graham hurts, but the offensive line is built for a championship. Quarterback looks like he's ready for a championship. You have the running game. You have the receivers. You have the secondary. If everybody can stay healthy, I know they had a couple guys go down today. That is a damn good football team. I'm not going to say that they're better than the Lions, but can they beat the Lions in a one-game matchup? Yes, they can. If it's a playoff matchup.
It'll be interesting with Sirianni too. You know, that obviously his confidence, and we'll see that really. I mean, obviously Barkley makes you a smarter man along the way. But we'll just see.
Hand it to 26. Yeah, turn around, hand it to 26.
Yeah, not bad, not bad. It'll be interesting though how he stacks up in the MVP debate as we move forward. Like honestly,
got to break the record.
Yeah, but he's starting to get a little momentum, which you need, right? Like that too. You're right. There are record things, but there's not. I mean, it looks like Allen's going to be his main competition at the quarterback position, right? So, but let's say like Allen's not he's having a good year, but he's not like breaking records to where this is actually giving Barkley in the running back position a rare chance to steal an MVP where it hasn't happened much in our lifetime.
It'd be funny if everything comes down to the MVP, Joe Burrow versus Saquon Barkley, because Burrow's going to throw for the most yards in NFL history, and Barkley's going to break the rushing record. How funny would that be? But right now, it's similar to kind of the Heisman conversation that was being had about Travis Hunter. You have to have your team be successful, which is being taken care of. You have to be a majority of the reason why they're being successful. You take Saquon Barkley out of any of these last couple of Eagles games, they've been down. It looks like they're going to struggle, but I feel like Saquon is such a calming presence. Their offense will go out there, they'll drive a little bit, he'll run the football, and then the defense is all of a sudden there. And they got some dudes on the defensive line too. This is not as good of a team as they had when they won the Super Bowl, but they are pretty damn talented up front on both sides. Like that is not a defensive or offensive front that I want to really be playing, especially in December.
Yeah. Who is the third best team in the NFC? Like, is it so? It's a clear number 1 and 2, right?
As of right now, it's the Vikings. I think aren't they the number 3 just by record? Or Packers? Packers and Vikings, I think, are tied.
Well, that's a good segue. Let's give Rev another second to get here before we dive into his team. Let's go right to that game. That's a good setup there, Jimmy. They pull it out in what would you say, typical Vikings fashion based on the way they've been playing this season.
I don't know if they're good enough to win games any other way, to be honest with you. That's kind of just what I've been thinking about over as I'm ruminating on it, because you think learn how to lose close, learn how to win close, learn how to win. Maybe they just can't get to that point. And it might be Sam Darnold is limited in what you can do. There's injuries in other places, and they're not necessarily the most talented, but they're winning games based on what they have right now. It's close all the time, but they're winning games consistently, and that is not something that you can say about a lot of teams in the NFL. That's what we talk about these teams. Do I think that I can see them going on this huge run? No. But when you talk about teams nowadays, especially at this point where we are in the season, Arizona's 6-5. They haven't been as consistent. Minnesota, while they're probably playing a lesser competition, they're playing the scheme. Their offense is finding ways to win. They're winning pretty much a majority of their games. They only have 2 losses on the season. They are a team that can be frisky. I think that they're a team that you don't want to see. I don't think that they're a team that's really a true championship contender. I think there's a huge gap between 2 and 3. I think there's a gap between 1 and 2, and between 2 and 3 in the NFC, there's an even bigger gap, because the Vikings, while they are good and consistent and deserve a lot of credit for 9 and 2, I still think that the Packers are a better football team.
I would agree too with that. It feels like when you watch the eye test, the Packers definitely meet the eye test better than the Vikings. But like I said, there is something to being able to pull out.
Jordan Love, has a better upside. I mean, Sam Darnold is talented and he was a top 5 pick, but Jordan Love just looks like he has a better chance of doing incredible things on the football field. It doesn't always pan out, but
no. The one thing the Vikings do have, like where Darnold, I always feel like in these late situations, and it kind of played out today on a 4th down. But I don't understand why he doesn't have success earlier with it. But having an elite receiver like Jefferson in crunch time minutes, where the defense is going to like automatically have a safety over there, like that's got to help in terms of reading the defense. And like it seems like at the end of the games, he's able to lock in a little. Like it's almost like the defense keep it like they dummy it down a little bit with them in a sense. Except for today, they didn't guard Jefferson on the 4th down, and he was able to get that hook route that kept it going. And we're seeing the interception here by Murray. He played all right. But the Cardinals blew that game too, though.
In that situation, it is a pick your poison. Are you going to take away the physical threat that will be open no matter what if you give them single coverage, or are you going to push mentally the quarterback? Are you going to give him a little bit of pressure and try and hold up just long enough that you can get home? No, I really don't know. It almost seems like this Kevin O'Connell offense is very complex, and people are struggling to pick it all up in the normal situations. But when they get to 2-minute situations at the end of half, at the end of the games, those are easier concepts that you're running because you have to go fast. There's not a whole lot of words in your offense. I know O'Connell comes from that West Coast tree where he's like Shanahan, where it's Ziggy Knight, boomstick, trips to X over 35, 30. We haven't even gotten to what anybody's doing. We're just doing all the formations and shifts and motions to get to that point. I think that maybe there is something to be said for dumbing it down. And, as good as Darnold has been, and he's definitely earned himself back a little bit of credit. He's not dead like we thought when he was leaving New York and Carolina.
Yeah.
I still think that he needs a little bit more time, like a little bit more time with success and a team that feels like they're behind him. Because there's something to be said for learning as a backup, but how do you learn how to be a starter? I think that's one of the biggest downfalls of Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't a starter for very long before he was handed the keys to that kingdom, and he got them just about as far as he could. Wasn't quite able to run the offense. That was a little bit too wordy. I see very similar things right now with the Vikings.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. The Vikings, they finish out the schedule. What I got here with them, they play Atlanta, Chicago, Seattle, at Seattle, Green Bay, and they finish with Detroit. So Green Bay, Detroit, they finish with there. We'll see if they're able. That's a tough schedule to finish with.
Why do you finish with 2 division games?
10-2 though, Jimmy. They have a chance to really prove themselves there, and they only lost to the Lions by 2 at home earlier. They probably should have won that game if I remember correctly, or they were
probably should have won. Is what we're going to be saying about the Vikings quite a bit. That's what we said about them a couple years ago too. Ooh, 14-3 Bills.
I saw that was get that up here. Let's see if I can get it up on the screen here in just a second. I'll get it up here.
I'm at an impasse because I need McCaffrey to do well to help me win against Nico, but I can't have McCaffrey do well to win in my teacher league. So do I want to have a good day at the water cooler tomorrow, or do I want to have a good day on Thursday with the podcast? Because this would be a sweep. My team is god awful this year in that league, though. I will say that.
This is our and the fantasy leagues are coming down to it right now. This is the bread and butter part of the season right here.
I am staring right down the barrel of running a mile in a business suit.
Not looking good for Jimmy. We do want to see that though. That would be entertaining. Please get that.
We don't see it. I mean, obviously, I got my new toys. I'm gonna be able to make a lot of content. Check it all out at FEOTB Pod. I've been putting out a ton of shit. There's a ton of stuff all through YouTube, social medias, and podcasting. I don't want to do that. I am not going to look like James Cook if I go out there and run a mile in a business suit. That just won't happen. Man,
in the snow. Look at that right there, Jimmy. That's epic football right there. Brian, if you're out there, I told you, buddy. He said it's a big game. I said if it's a blow up by halftime, come join, get back on. Give us the update. You're still invited. If you don't want it, Brian, come on. James Cook pulls away there, as you can see, 14-3. They get Purdy back, but Niners got a lot of work to do to get back into this one. On the road, tough call there. The Bills highly motivated, like we said, MVP between him and Barkley. It's looking like right now after week 13. So we'll see how that pulls in. We'll keep you updated on that game as we keep it moving here.
6 punts in the first half. That is just beautiful offensive football.
Did you see that before they came out on Sunday night? They had Jim Kelly and Steve Young doing their intro. That's what they had.
I did not.
So they had. It's just funny because you said the punt thing, because they're doing this intro between the two of them, like not like them with the mics, but just doing the whole real deal there. And they're talking about a game where they didn't punt in 1992, the first no punt game. So it's funny Jimmy brings that punt there.
The 90s, that was Steve Young versus Jim Kelly. I don't think the punters even showed up to the field. They just actually that was back when the backup quarterback held kicks, so they weren't even there to hold PATs. They literally just sat on the bench. I used to be buddies. I was the backup long snapper, so I was buddies with our punter in college. We had a couple. There was not many, because in my college career, I can count the number of wins that I have on one hand, which is very disappointing, because my dad can count the number of championship rings he got from his college days on one hand there. But there's been a couple times where we would go and our punter, I can't remember, it was like it was a stipend hotel and bench. That was what his routine was, because the punter was not needed. Yeah, we don't need you. Your third string quarterback, you're punting today. We're not going to need a punter because we're just scoring on every drive that we have. Don't worry about it. Take your shoes off.
Jimmy, we got you got Rev on here with us as well. Rev, how we doing?
Grab him.
Doing good here. I know I got things going off in the background here. Just decided to stumble on into the podcast and make my noise, but nice to be back.
Well, good. It's good to have you. You're one of the best here. I always enjoy having you on. I know it's been a while, so I appreciate you reaching out to me and being able to jump on. It's kind of a perfect time for you, sir, because I got your boy Wilson up here. That's where I wanted to go with you. I got it. So let's get to it.
Ranger Rust.
There is no better bounce back than the Bengals defense. That is proved 100% right now.
414 yards, Rev, Jimmy, 3 touchdowns. He makes it look easy. The Bengals do show a little fight there at the end to kind of make it a game, but
we got an offense. We got an offense. We got no defense.
The Bengals dropped to 1-5 at home, lost 4 out of 5. Rev, you're joining us here. You got the hot team. Me and Jimmy every week have been like Steelers for real, all that good stuff. So where are you at with this team? How are you feeling against them? Maybe with the Chiefs. How are you liking your team? They're on fire right now this year.
Yeah, at the moment right here, I see them right now as solid playoff contender. Not at the point where I'd say, like, I'm confident of them just completely taking the house and winning the Super Bowl. I got to see a few more things. Need to see a little more offensive consistency. That I know we tend to struggle against Cleveland. Like, when we, for whatever reason, like, for the last few years, we can't seem to buy a win going to Cleveland. But I got to see a few more things offensively, but I love the disruptive defense, even though Cincinnati and Joe Burrow was on a tear. But you could always rely on that Pittsburgh defense here and there to get a few stops, get a few key strip sack, random interceptions off of a pressure, just due to the fact of how disruptive they could be from moment to moment.
I mean, you don't look at them like they could beat the Chiefs then or the Bills yet?
Well, the Chiefs at this point, the way that they just kind of play to the level of their competition, I can see that as a very winnable game. Like I think we could beat any team on any given day. However, looking at a team like Buffalo, like in good weather on a good day, if Josh Allen just has one of those Josh Allen days, I don't see Russell Wilson being able to duel. I kind of had moments in the first half today where it felt like Joe Burrow was on one of those days where I felt maybe like if we don't get a stop or if we didn't get those key turnovers that we did in the second half, I was thinking if Joe Burrow just has one of those Joe Burrow days, I don't know if Russell Wilson could go tit for tat for a full game. But ultimately, it's that Steelers brand where if we could get those key stops here and there, our offense right now is even more explosive than it's been in a while. So,
Jimmy, we watched one of those key stops right there with TJ Watt.
TJ Watt it's the haunting of my dream. He just took over for James Harrison. He haunts my dreams for totally different reasons because he doesn't knock anybody out. He just steals the ball from you at the worst times.
Clutch play.
It's always at the time where you can't have. You're like, we can't give up a sack. Well, guess what? 90's coming around the edge. Your tackle's gonna forget the snap count and he's just gonna go around flying. Well, we can't give up a turnover. Guess what? I'm stripping the ball, and I'm not only just stripping it, I'm picking it up and I'm running with it.
Benny Wilson with the scoop and score. He's like a closing pitcher in that way.
Don't talk scoop and score right now, Rev. I'm still recovering from Saturday. I'm still recovering from that Western loss on a scoop and score yesterday after the entire thing, trying to get to the list. They would have been the last RMAC team in the playoffs, but they lost. And then today, I mean, it's what I've been saying for I can't remember when exactly I turned heel, but I did turn heel, and I'm just wearing it ironically now. I'm just wearing it because I feel like I need to punish myself. I'm publicly flogging myself to try and get whatever demon is cursing this defense because I don't think it's Anarumo. I think that Anarumo is a good defensive coach. I don't know if it's just the talent that we've lost on our defensive line. I don't know if our DBs legitimately don't understand what coverages they're running because it's almost like that's what's going on at sometimes. Cam Taylor-Britt had one pick that I think should have probably been off defensive pass interference before he even got the ball to him. Just didn't get called. But, oh my goodness, like the Steelers, Russell Wilson would be happy throwing for 265 in a game. The fact that we gave him 414 and 3 touchdowns today, I get that they got some guys that can score. Pickens is a good receiver. I would not want him on my team. I would not want to root for a team that has him on my roster because I know what he's going to – he's going to get himself kicked out in a third of every game.
He nearly got kicked out of the game today.
He probably should have been. And I said it. After Cam Taylor-Britt's pick 6, I said, Pickens going to shiv somebody on this next drive. Watch. And he almost did. That was the drive that he dropped the ball on the dude's face. Like, you know they're looking at you. I know Tomlin talks to you before every game. Like, they are looking. directly at you after every single play, whether you're trying, because they think you're either going to fight somebody on the field, you're going to fight one of the media personnel on the sideline, or you're going to jump your ass up into the stands and fight one of the opposing. I'm surprised he didn't jump his ass up in the jungle. You guys would have gotten 3-0. You guys would have dominated our defense. You would have won the game, and then you would have also won in the stands. You would have dominated the jungle, because that was as big of a joke as I've seen of a Bengals home playoff game since we were the damn Bungles, like the year that Carson Palmer left. There is zero, like, we've scored 35 points every game at home, and we have won a single game at home. There's nothing worse. This coaching staff proved it. You need to go. We got to get rid of you now, because somebody's going to steal Ben Johnson in the time that Mike Brown gets off his ass and goes somewhere.
It just feels like every gamble that they took on the defensive side of the ball when it comes to the people that they got rid of. And, ultimately, one of the better players, Logan Wilson, didn't play today, but that's just one little piece, which ultimately is still a major problem so far this year. But the gambles they took with getting rid of DJ Reader and looking for a piece in Sheldon Rankins, in which ultimately just isn't a different style of defensive tackle, more of a 3-tech, but hasn't quite hit the same way. Taking gambles on Dax Hill. And
it's so similar to the Giants, Rev. I'm thinking about it now, and I have a cousin who's a Giants fan, so I was talking to him about it on Thanksgiving, but he's one of those Giants fans, like, you know what? It doesn't really bother me that we let Saquon go, because we found we weren't going to be able to pay him. Like, yeah, you would have been able to pay him if you didn't pay your quarterback. That's what the Bengals are doing right now. We have DJ Reader, who loves playing here, that makes big plays for us. That was a big reason why we made it to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship the next year. Oh, we'll go ahead and find somebody else. Why don't you just pay your good players?
You guys are in an odd spot, the Bengals. I mean, Burrow, like you said, they're on the verge of missing the playoffs 2 straight years.
I think it's over now. I get that it's 8 losses and it's not really over, but
no, it's probably over. You're right. It probably
still got to play your division one more time. I think everybody except for the Ravens.
No, you're right. It's probably it does seem like it's.
And we got the Broncos. The Broncos are going to whoop that ass.
Lots of tiebreaker complications in there too. Like, who knows if the Chargers are fighting for a last spot and then they beat y'all. Then whoever else, the Ravens in there, of course, 8-5, kind of shaky, like fighting for those last few wild card spots here and there with all those tiebreaker complications. It's almost impossible. Like, y'all are already one more loss and y'all are below 500 for the year. So good luck.
Only got to win like 10 of our next 13 games and we maybe have a shot.
We can do it. I believe in you. I believe in it.
Not this year. It's not happening this year. But next year we might be able to get there.
All you got to do is just score more points than the other team.
Yeah, but that's really hard when you give up the most amount of points. And it's so stupid. Not stupid. I love Nico. But, like, I've been on this train. I've told people this is how things have been going for a long time. And I'm still getting text messages this deep into the season like, this Bengals defense is the worst defense in NFL history.
Terrible.
I know. I said it. I already jumped the bandwagon. I thought that might help. I already tried to put my foot in my mouth. It didn't work.
Isn't it crazy too? You have Hendrick, the top sack guy, and it's still like I always say, it doesn't matter.
Top receiver, top quarterback, top sack guy, and our coach is the Commodus of the NFL right now. Because I saw Gladiator 2, and Gladiator 2 was freaking.
I gotta watch
awesome.
it.
It was awesome. I'm not gonna ruin it, but if you've seen the first one, then you know why Commodus sucks so bad. Right, he has stabbed Joe Burrow in the back. That's what he's doing before that final fight. He stabbed Joe Burrow in the back, and he's just waiting for both of them to die at the very end of the movie.
I saw Twisters too. Hopefully it'll be better than that. Hopefully it'll be that.
Ain't no love in Oklahoma, baby. Ain't no love there.
No, there isn't. We saw that. So Steelers, I'd be interested, Rev. Your Steelers as they march forward. Here's their schedule, as you know it. It's a tough one. You got your pesky Browns you got the pesky Browns. You got at Philadelphia, at Baltimore, and then you finish with Chiefs and the Bengals. So not a cupcake schedule there. So we'll see how you guys can. And probably
we beat you in Pittsburgh, Rev.
Probably a chance for you to prove yourselves, though.
Bring the Houday Nation, man.
Oh no, we're not bringing any Houday Nation. You guys stole our home field advantage. I'm just thinking we've won in Pittsburgh the last few years. That's kind of what we do now.
You guys have done it a couple times, and it'll be interesting in the last game.
Last year, but yeah, I think 21 or 20 in 22 we won in Cincinnati, and then
that was the first time we broke the curse in Pittsburgh. The year that we went to the Super Bowl was the year we broke the curse finally.
Oh, yeah, y'all beat us both times that year. Then,
yep, that was good times. I was so happy back then. I'm still happy, but it was a different kind of happiness.
Different type of happy. Wilson gets 414 yards, as Jimmy said. So that's crazy there with it. Captain Kirk, not the same. Not the same for John. Pathetic performance from him.
He threw as many touchdowns as half the amount of bathrooms he had in his house in Denver, by the way.
Yeah, so I guess, I don't know, like, I was looking at how to phrase this. There's a couple I had that wrong because I thought the Bucs were going to lose. But my point is, like, what I had there, is there a point where I don't feel like what happened? Is there a point when they would go to Penix? Like, like, or are they just going to ride this out because they traded for him and they, that's what it feels like they're going to do because of those factors. But if you're actually playing on the field, you know what I mean? Is Penix even ready? I don't know. He was pretty bad. Cousins was awful today. That game was on locally here. That game was on locally randomly here, and my son got mad at me. He's like, I forgot to take Mahomes. I kept with Cousins in for him and didn't put Mahomes in. And I said, well, we got to watch. At least the game's on locally. We can watch him. He's like, he sucks. And he was right. He does suck. He did not do well tonight. So I don't know. It's just a weird deal. Do they go to Penix at all, Jimmy?
I don't know if Raheem Morris is thinking about going to Penix, but the last couple games that I've paid attention to the Falcons, I noticed that they don't use Bijan Robinson, and Kirk Cousins loves to turn the ball over. And when you don't put the ball in the best player's hands and your quarterback gets a case of the turnovers, it doesn't get fixed unless you are able to. I mean, I believe they had a bye week in between after the Broncos kicked the dog crap out of them, and that you go out there today, and that was a very winnable game. Your defense has to be just beside itself because they're giving you opportunities to be close in some of these games. Like today, your quarterback let you down. Your guy that you are paying a lot of guaranteed money to, that cost you a little bit of your future because he didn't have the right thing to say in the media and cost him a draft pick for the collusion, being the tampering that the Falcons were doing with Kirk Cousins. I don't know if it's time to go to Penix because what is Penix really going to do for you at this point? You're still competing for the division. I don't think that you're going to keep that same drive. You're not going to keep the locker room in that fight if you go straight to a rookie quarterback right now. Like if Penix was – I really don't even know a situation. Like you just have to hope that your veteran quarterback can figure himself out.
That's probably maybe a crazy take for me to say to him. It's just like you feel like if I was a Falcons fan, that's probably where I'd be feeling desperate though right now. You're just like, my God, we suck right now. We can't. You know what I mean? Like it's probably not the right move. They're not going to make it as a franchise, but it just feels like they are on a downhill slope.
It depends on when you give up on the season because I feel like when you put Penix in, that means you've given up on what you can do this season.
Well, you're definitely not giving up on it, right? If you put him in now, like you are thinking he could get you to the playoffs. Cousins threw 4 interceptions today, though. Rev, he threw 4. He looked terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah, I feel like right now Kirk Cousins is kind of in that late career Matt Ryan, late career Phillip Rivers stage where if the pieces are together, if the offensive line is intact, and if everything is in the right place, he's going to be a sitting duck in the pocket and just kind of dissect your defense from there. But due to the Achilles injury, it feels like that sped up almost a retirement, or almost in terms of his longevity, it's just speeding everything up. Where if everything is not in place, if the O-line is in shambles or not blocking on that day, you're going to see moments where he's not going to be able to lift you up because he can't move. He's not going to create anything himself. And you're just going to see the signs of wear and tear, the slight decrease in arm strength or arm talent in which he had in Minnesota. You're going to see that wear and tear come in. So you just got to hope that everything's in place, make sure that the protection's there, or else you're just going to see the warts.
It seems to be that the Achilles injury is almost like the ACL injury for running backs was in the 90s. When you have an Achilles injury for a quarterback, it is, especially if it's on your plant foot that you're rotating off of, I feel that's what's been holding Rodgers back too. But Cousins has definitely not been the same ever since going down last season. Yeah. I didn't even really put 2 and 2 together. But, I also want to say, too, the Chargers, they're in a rut. They're in a midseason slump. because you have that almost comeback that you gave up against Cincinnati. You lose last week against the Ravens in a game that you probably could have handled. And then today looks god-awful, but you survive it because the other quarterback throws 4 interceptions. If they are able to get out of this, they are a pretty scary team, I think, to see in the playoffs. I'm worried, though, because while I trust Harbaugh and I know that he's been here, I don't know if he knows what to do to get them out of this rut right now. It seems like they're trying a lot of different things, but I don't know what's going on with them. This is not the team that was making waves. They have taken a step back, and they still need to figure something out. Like the last few weeks has shown me a lot of holes in their game.
Just real quick update here. Hollins with the
touchdown.
Nice
Matt Hollins touchdown.
21-3.
I was going to say it when Tyler was trying to defend Jordan Pickens earlier today. He was just lashing out because he's disappointed in his team too. But I didn't because I wasn't sure how tonight was going to go. I should have just pulled the trigger. I should have just pulled the damn trigger.
It's
very funny there. I was just aggressive pointing. I didn't see no trigger. What are you talking about? You were just pointing.
Personal foul, 15-yard penalty, celebration with a gun.
You're out, eliminated it.
No, you get 2 personal fouls, and then you're kicking.
John Morant treatment, man. Like let him
shotgun Willie's treatment.
Yeah, let him.
Darren, you know that happened in Denver, right? That happened.
Yeah, shotgun Willie's. Yeah,
that's 5 minutes away from my girlfriend's apartment.
I did not know that. That's what that's about.
Yeah, that's 5 minutes away. I drive past it when I go visit her.
I had no idea.
And it's not a classy, like that's not a good. It'd be like going to the Spirit Rhino in Las Vegas. There's plenty of other. There's PT Show Club a little bit further south, but no, they had to go to shotguns. That's where John Morant decided.
Right after getting blown out by the Nuggets by like 30, not giving a care in the world, just
do what they need.
And he brought his gun inside. That was your biggest mistake. Kids don't bring your gun inside.
They don't want to bring the gun inside.
Oh no, the surveillance footage of that lap dance looked like the loneliest thing I've ever seen. But yeah.
I can't believe you watched the surveillance footage of the left dance.
Well, it was there. Well, yes, for research. Yes,
research purposes.
Yes,
only research purposes. Rev, so we got the Chargers at Kansas City next Sunday night. I asked the guys this question a couple weeks ago, and obviously you're a Steelers fan. Who do you trust more, the Steelers or the Chargers?
I'd have to. It's very well. At this point, I'd have to go. At this point, I have to.
I know, I just laugh. It
feels like in the case of Kansas City and us, we kind of both have like that voodoo thing where teams make mental mistakes in the fourth quarter, whether it's the Raiders or Aiden O'Connell fumbling a snap randomly or a blocked field goal on special teams, where teams will have some type of mental screw up, where Pittsburgh kind of seems to benefit from that exact same thing, where we'll have like that random strip sack at the best time for us and the worst time for the opponent, where we tighten up and just play a very random mistake-free football. So like we kind of have those same things going on. Whereas the case before, it was just they had a better quarterback. Obviously, it's Mahomes. But now I feel like we have those things in effect, and we also have a quarterback playing.
So you would trust the Steelers over the Chargers then?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, on the other hand, the Chargers, like Jim Harbaugh, just any Jim Harbaugh coach team is just going to have that team ready to go, like ready for whatever physical brand of football is going to be there. So he kind of has like that magic effect as well, but I feel like we have more explosivity at the moment, a little bit more firepower, but you can't sleep on a Jim Harbaugh coaching. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they did also, or if the Chiefs did slip up and lost a couple games before the playoffs.
Well, they almost lost one. They've been testing the waters there, so we'll see what happens there with it. What do you guys, the Seahawks, real quick, they pull it out. Well, they get a 92-yard touchdown from the big defensive tackle, Mr. Williams there. They lead the division 7-5. They pull it out late. The Jets just continue to be kind of a dumpster fire there with how things, just a crazy season there with it overall. The Seahawks, like I said, they're 7-5 now. They hold down the lead there in the NFC West. But as I get the best of the rest, curious to get your thoughts on this, Jimmy. With this hit we saw. It was a big hit, obviously, in that Texans-Jaguars game. Just a lethal hit. But in a sense, it's football, and Al Shahir will
He knows way better. That is that
Because you
guy.
can see
I
him
can't believe that
sliding, right?
No, he knows. He knows.
So how many games do you think he gets suspended after that?
I don't. I mean, that's an elbow to the face of a quarterback. You're looked at as a captain on your team, so I have to feel like there's going to be some other extenuating circumstances. You drove the back of his head into the ground, and at the end of the day, you are a human being, and you are tackling another human being who has a family of his own, and you want to take it upon yourself to dive at a guy that's giving him. He has no way of defending himself. No way of defending himself. And you cannot sit there. I played football for a very long time. I know when somebody's giving themselves up. I also know that in the game of football, you don't take cheap shots at people like that. That is one of the first rules you learn. I got smacked in the face by my dad because I took a cheap shot at one of my own teammates. I lost a drill and I got pissed. I tried to take a cheap shot the next time. I was let very well know that does not happen. That dude should be done for the rest of the season. That is almost as bad as going back to Vontaze Burfict. That was ridiculous. I didn't see that play live because I wasn't watching that game. That is ridiculous. You are intent to injure all of that, elbowing the opposing quarterback. It's a team that you should beat. It's a team that you should have handled with the starting quarterback or not. That's ridiculous. That guy doesn't deserve to play another down of football this season and needs to go through a lot of counseling. Like, I would strip his C.
He lost his mind too, right on the sideline.
I would strip his C if I was D'Amico Ryans. You're P. That is not the way that football was meant to be played. That is not a football play.
And honestly, adding on to not only that, part of it kind of felt almost planned because the way he aimed the elbow, knowing that Trevor Lawrence was going to slide, and he had more time to pull. Trevor Lawrence did not slide late. He had time to pull up. And the way he planned his elbow to hit exactly where Trevor was going to slide. And it's not only that incident. I remember when he punched Roschon Johnson on the sideline during the week 2 against the Chicago Bears. It's not just the first incident, but ultimately it might just be a one-game suspension. But I definitely have to agree with your testament, Jimmy, where you got to protect people out there. You got to, play hard, but ultimately there are ways to deliver hits without doing bush league stuff like that, where you got to set a precedent. He's had incidents, punching people on the sidelines, elbowing.
And going off afterwards. Look at this.
No, I mean, I would have, if I was in that situation, I mean.
Well, yeah, it started with scuffle.
That's exactly what's supposed to happen. The offensive lineman is supposed to have Shahir's face, and he's supposed to be eating the turf and getting, he's supposed to get comeuppance for that. You don't just get away with hurting somebody. You especially don't get away with cheap shots. We saw that a few weeks ago with the guy trying to twist. I can't remember whose ankle it was, but you had an offensive
trying to twist Justin Herbert. Yeah,
you have a lineman getting right there right away. That is, I don't understand it. I get that people understand. I mean, football is a violent football game. You are going out there and you know that you have a risk of injury on every single play. Sometimes you try and hit people. Sometimes you try and hit people really, really hard. And is there talk about knocking somebody out of the game? Sure. But you do it in a certain way. You do it in executing your technique. You do it in the actual proper manner of a football play. The quarterback slide was invented so that the football play would be over. And it's been universal for I don't know how many years that when a quarterback is giving himself up, you cannot slide. He hit him in the face before his butt even hit the ground.
Jimmy, when you say season, so there'll be 5 weeks left. Do you mean the playoffs too? Or
I don't think that he should be. I would legitimately I know that Burfict had all of the other incidents leading up to the final suspension, the one that he had against Doyle and the Colts. But it's at that point, if you're Roger Goodell and if you're the NFL, and I know that this isn't the case, and I get what I mean. Rev's right. He's probably going to have a 1-game suspension. We say this about the NHL all the time too. If you are truly in the business of protecting players and making sure that these sorts of things don't happen, because God forbid that Trevor Lawrence hits his head in the wrong way and has either a Tua situation, which would have been worse, or, I mean, we literally saw a guy die on the field less than 3 years ago. So if this is not addressed, you don't actually care about the players. You care about the money, which is what everybody kind of has the understanding of knowing, but we like to say that we're fans of the NFL because they're taking all of these steps and the end racism in the back of the end zone, and they're doing this and they're doing that. This is like ground zero. This is where we're going to see what the NFL truly believes in. And if I'm the Players Association, I know that you got to back the player, but backing the player in this instance, if you're trying to fight for Shahir not to be suspended for the entire rest of the season, you're fighting against the rest of the league. You are saying that it's better to protect somebody that's trying to injure you, take food off of your plate, and try and end your career over a guy that you don't want the shield to overrun him. I think that he shouldn't play the rest of the season. Playoffs, whatever. I don't even know if they're going to make the playoffs. I think that's part of the issue. I think he fucking panicked and he made a bonehead decision. And I'd like to think that that's not him because he's a captain, but damn, he lost his mind. And that was a terrible play.
I don't know. The Texans will probably make it in simply because the AFC South is an absolute dumpster fire this year. But the last time I can remember a player receiving like a full rest of the season suspension was at one time Myles Garrett swung Mason Rudolph's helmet.
That was a lot nicer of a situation, even though you think about it, you're trying. That's attempted murder with a deadly weapon.
Yeah. And ultimately a situation like this is more dangerous. It's not as outlandish because we see situations of avoidable head-on collisions.
It looks like it's very good. It looks like a football play, but this is the same type of shit that they would have given you $50K for in Bountygate.
No, this was too much. It's
just too cheap. He had time to pull up because Trevor Lawrence. It's not like he slid late. He slid.
I would like to think that D'Amico Ryans did not. I mean, that's not instructed by the coaching staff, but at that point, I feel like the NFL. If you don't suspend Shahir, you at least need to look into the Texans and get like some independent consultant. Say, what are you telling your guys? Are you telling them to go out there and make sure that quarterbacks don't finish games and that you take as many?
I think he gets the 3 games, Jimmy. I'm with you. I think he gets more than the 1, but then I also think you have to take into effect what he did after the hit. He lost his mind after that too. And so I think that adds extra layers and it gives the NFL a little bit of a bailout to give him a little bit more games.
I don't know if they have a precedent of remorse. I don't know if there's a precedent if you show remorse or if you don't show remorse if it gets worse. What did they give? I mean, didn't Antonio Brown just retire? Because I feel like there's the incident. The hit is kind of like perfect, and then the incident afterwards is kind of like Antonio Brown, where you just lose your ever-loving mind and you're like trying to taunt the fans and do all that.
The history with him is different than those two guys. That's the biggest difference, right? Like,
I get it, and I don't ever. That struck a.
No, I agree. It was a cheap shot. That's as big as one we saw all year. It's probably the biggest cheap shot of the season.
I'm not calling the guy a cheap shot artist, but that's one of the dirtiest plays that I've ever seen. And if that isn't your intention, if you just went blank, because I'm sure that people go blank all the time, and he might have, after he got back into the locker room, said, I didn't watch any post game press conference. I don't really want to see anything about him for the next couple days. I know myself well enough. I need to take a break. But if he, went back and came to his senses, maybe I could listen to him and understand and maybe hear an explanation as to why. But at this point, I don't care. I hope that, you're going to get your suspension. And here's the other thing is when you come back onto the field, the next time that you play the Jaguars, whether Trevor Lawrence is there or not, whether he's healthy enough to play, you will get what's
we'll see what
comes back around. You did this against a divisional opponent. You did this against the wrong team because you're going to see this team again. I don't know if it's this season. When it's next season, when it's next season, this will be handled. And they got guys on their team that can handle this. The Jaguars are bad not because they have bad players.
That coaching situation, man. Yeah, they got a clean house. And Lawrence kind of had some inconsistencies at the beginning of the year, but we saw what he did in the games where he was in form. So ultimately, get rid of that coaching staff, get rid of Doug Peterson and his nonchalant answers in the press conferences, and just regroup.
Other best of the rest here, we got Richardson. He throws for the touchdown late for the Colts. They keep their playoff hopes alive with I would say they steal a victory against the Patriots. They're late.
This was beautiful, Darren. Yes, I had a Colts fan retweet the tweet that initially went viral all the way back to the very beginning of the season. And it was hilarious because that tweet that he retweeted has 14,000 views and his tweet only has like 140. And then I even replied it. I liked it. I retweeted it. And then I replied to it trying to drive up his engagement. But it was cute. It's like, it's funny because I gave Anthony Richardson his flowers a couple weeks ago when he had that other really good game. Like I said, maybe he's learning how to be an NFL quarterback. I've actually turned the corner already. I stole your thunder. Sorry.
He bailed out though. Like this was not. He was okay. I wouldn't say this was like the most impressive.
Oh, it's not.
It was a character.
He's not ever gonna win. Like
still very boomer busty at this point, which is the person he is. He'll throw a 60-yard bomb and then he'll miss a routine throw. He's just very boomer busty.
And Rev, they stay with the win though. They are 6-7. They remain 2 games out. Like I always say with the Colts, they'll be there till the final 2 weeks. Do I want them in the playoffs? I probably don't from an entertainment value standpoint, but they're there still. They get bailed. They pull it out late. They go for 2. That was a gutsy call with 12 seconds left to get the 2-point conversion. They get that with the Patriots, so they steal the win there, and they remain in a little hope there with the playoffs. All right, we'll take a little break here just for a second. We'll get back on here. I got some turkey football for you guys. Check out Jimmy far into the bench here with Nico, a little part of the show here. And we'll be back with you just in a second here.
Built to be playing in Philadelphia.
Saquon is built to win the MVP right now. We may see a running back win the MVP. He is, man. We won't try to beat a dead horse here, but poor Deion Jones, right? Poor Deion Jones. The whole weight of New York is on him and Aaron Rodgers' shoulder. They have done nothing but fumble, and frankly, it's not even his fault. It's probably Jim Shane's fault. So. Man, that's if you're a Giants fan watching Saquon Barkley run for 255 yards or whatever it was and just go absolutely berserk, you're like, what could have been? There was I don't know if you watched that the Hard Knocks of the offseason.
I've seen the clip on social media.
It's not necessarily the sickening of Barkley going to Philly. The conversation they had, because they showed the conversation they had of running backs in the free agent market. They said,
is there anybody that can really be better than Barkley?
Be sure to check out far end of the bench there. There Nico and Jimmy talking about Saquon there. Good show always, gentlemen. And we talked about
anybody
Saquon
that's going to be Barkley's not that much better than anybody else we can get, right?
I mean, Barkley or Henry, is there a possibility that Henry and Barkley finish above 2 quarter, like only Allen? Like, could those combos finish above Jackson and Mahomes, and you'd actually have 2 running backs in the top 3? That's kind of weird.
There's going to be one that takes over. I think that the Eagles as a team are a little bit better than the Ravens right now. I think there's going to be one that takes over, and you might have 2 running backs in the top 5, but I don't think there's going to be 2 running backs in the top 3.
Interesting. All right. I don't know.
The Ravens have kind of stumbled here a couple times here and there. So Philly's definitely just when it comes to team success and what Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry wasn't terrible, but he got outdueled today. So I say that kind of keeps Barkley up front.
And there's a way to beat Derrick Henry too. If you get him to move laterally right now, I get that he's still – I'm not sitting here saying that he is losing anything, and he is still a pain in the ass to have in my division. But if you can get him to stop his feet and move laterally, that's what Tony Romo even pointed out on the broadcast. And if Tony Romo sees it, that means everybody can see it. If you can get him to go side to side, Derrick Henry will be shut down. Saquon Barkley, he'll jump over your ass backwards. And if you're gonna shut down the running game, he's gonna run past your safety and he's gonna score a receiving touchdown. So how do you want it? It's the scene from Rush Hour when Chris Tucker's, which one of y'all kicked me? Saquon's just like, me.
Still obviously the highlight of the year still with him as well. Good show there. You guys far to the bench there. Check that out. You guys usually go Wednesdays or Thursdays live. It usually
Wednesdays, Thursdays. It'll be interesting now that I got high school wrestling season starting. So it's going to be based on my schedule.
I'm gonna let you guys fill out this one because I got some other stuff I want to get to. So I got the Rams over. I got the Rams over the Saints. We got the Bucks over the Panthers late in overtime there, and then we got we got the Commanders. They bounce back.
Remember the Titans? Yeah.
Remember they get destroyed. Rev, where do you want to go with one of those games there? I mean, the Bucks Panthers did play a good game. Bryce Young maybe showing some life, but
yeah, Yeah, I definitely said some disparaging things about him last time I was on the show. Definitely kind of just pointing. I basically wrote his obituary, and it seems like the time that he spent on the bench learning from Andy Dalton, who did just enough when it came to taking advantage of the weapons that were there when Deontay Johnson was playing, and ultimately now that he's gone to Baltimore. I mean, I don't want to sway too much to the Pittsburgh-Baltimore conversation, but when it comes to what Bryce Young has been doing ever since he was able to sit back, learn from Andy Dalton, take some mental reps, it feels more and more that perhaps Carolina gives him a chance next year. However, yeah, there's still some time left. 6 more games for him to play this year, but it feels like the leash is a little longer. Like the time that was spent on the bench where he was able to just sit back and regroup, it seems to have been beneficial for him.
What do you think, Jimmy? That was a good game though. The Bucks, they get the win. It looked like that was going to be a bad loss for them, and then I was like, oh, now the Falcons still are going to be in first place. Now that they jumped to first place, still 6-6. But then you got obviously the Rams. They also go to 6-6 in that division as well. So I don't know. They got the Commanders. They're right there keeping pace a little bit. So kind of some three interesting games here.
The Commanders needed this one because the Commanders, I think, are still the last seed in the NFC. I don't think that they're catching the Eagles at this point, but if Terrell wants to have Jaden Daniels help him out in his Rookie of the Year conversation, he needs to continue to have performances like this, and he needs to hope that the blonde assassin out here in the Mile High City decides that he's not about that action. I don't know if you guys saw that. That clip against Diablo is pretty cold, where he's just staring him down like, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. It's like, damn, I thought the white boy was going to back down. That guy's not backing down. But Jaden Daniels, he needed this game because you started off so high, and then when you fell, you want to talk last week, but it was like
I feel like
almost fell down to the bottom, but you wily yourself out of there. I'm interested to see how you finish up your season, but it's the Titans. It's the Titans.
That is true. Titans don't count. What do you think, Brad?
I think the Jaden Daniels, in terms of the drop-off, I think he's a slight bit over-exaggerated when you look at maybe what happened in the Cowboys game where one of those interceptions was off a Hail Mary. The other one was kind of just a slight tip throw. I gotta go back and see.
He did also make the play to McLaurin. That was a lot of McLaurin, but he completed the pass. He did complete the pass. But
ultimately, there are some team slip-ups here and there. Where the Philadelphia game was just kind of a mess on Thursday night. But I'd say it was more so Bo Nix playing himself into the conversation more than it has been. Jaden Daniels has been he hasn't been flat out awful. Just kind of been some games where he just wasn't as consistently dynamic. But yeah, today was with confidence. It was a bit of a game where you just restore your confidence against a struggling team in which the Titans are a feisty bunch, but you also have the Will Levis factor, which he's shown some improvements. He's kind of played better, but you're still lacking pocket presence. You're still every once in a while where he's starting to make the big throws again now, so I'll give him credit for improving there. But you'll still get the boneheaded decisions and interceptions.
Oh, so, yeah.
Didn't Kentucky lose to Louisville this week, too? I'm pretty sure Louisville won that rivalry this weekend, too. So
tough week for Will.
Game days be delicious.
Jimmy, what was worse, the Bears or the Raiders at the end of the game? Who did it? Who blew the game worse on Thursday?
Because I'm friends with you, and I don't want to pile on too bad because I think that you guys played well enough to win that game against the Chiefs, just like my team did.
Good second half.
My teams did, because both my teams have also tasted the utter boot of defeat against the Chiefs. There's been a lot. You could have been fired after your mismanagement of the Hail Mary situation in Washington when you guys were still above 500. You could have been fired after the Cardinals ran for 46 yards at the end of the half, right up your ass. You could have been fired when you lost in overtime, or you could have been fired when you got the field goal blocked against the Packers. And you could have been fired last week when you lost in overtime to the Vikings. If you're going to sit here, the Bears are the embodiment of what Matt Eberflus did on the sideline on Thanksgiving Day. I was I was already on my way to a food coma at the end of that game. I will not lie to you. I had 3 bowls of my homemade chicken noodle soup. I had some beer, the soup, the noodles and the beer expanded, and I was out for probably a good two hours until turkey time. I was done. I was done from soup till turkey. But I saw the ending of this game, and even in my state of tryptophan delirium, I was like, "They have a timeout, right? They have a timeout. They have a timeout. They have a timeout. You have a timeout.
You don't want to at least try to kick a field goal?
I was looking for a controller to grab. I was hitting the options button like timeout.
His comment got him fired after the game too, though.
Yeah, I think at that point he knew he was fired. Like at this point, it's like there's nothing I can say to possibly like extend my coaching stint past Monday. So let me just say that I did everything I could have possibly done. But you look at the entire situation, it's like, I don't know, why don't you at least try to go for a long field goal? Like, yeah, I know it's long, but you're playing in a dome, so no precipitation. Well, don't you, I don't know, at least try to schedule a play to quickly get somebody out of the
on like
and then get a field goal.
Before that drive,
31 seconds.
They went from 32 seconds to 6.
Oh my gosh!
They blew 26 seconds off the clock.
I coach middle school football out here in Podunk, Colorado, and I knew to take a timeout.
Take a timeout, maybe run a play, spike the ball, something.
I've never seen an organization like you should have.
So
how many people told you to move on?
Or spike the ball right there. I don't know.
But here's the thing: how many people told you to move on last year? How many? Yeah. And you would have had the opportunity
to fight at the end of last year.
I get it. But he never showed you anything. This is bad. But the only thing that he showed you that was better was like a little bit better. Like fighting for a wild card spot was the only thing Matt Eberflus was ever going to do for you as a head coach. Ryan Poles deserves just as much blame for what's going on in Chicago as Eberflus does. Because if he was a smart GM, we've been talking about this. Rip the Band-Aid off. I don't care if you drafted a quarterback in the first round. Look at the Cardinals. Yeah, the Cardinals are kind of middle of the road and still fighting for their division, but they ripped the Band-Aid off as soon as they knew Josh Rosen wasn't worth a top 15 overall pick. And they got Kyler Murray, and Kyler's doing whatever they want to do for him. But that was a team that understood, hey, moving on faster is better than trying to hold on to some bullshit, maybe pay it a few years down the – I'm not going to pay a wet blanket $140 million, Daniel Jones, to just sit there and do nothing for my organization. That's exactly what the Bears did with their coach.
Yeah, and that's got to go down as one of the worst endings there you could have. And then, like I said, you have the Raiders on top of it. Yeah, maybe not.
He still hasn't called timeout.
But the Raiders was just as bad too. I mean, my goodness, you don't hike a ball and then like with one. I mean, it's just typical Chiefs win the same way this year too. They just find a way to survive and move on. So far, just want to give you guys a quick update here. Playoffs started today. You'd have Chiefs. This is right now to the minute. Chiefs, Bills, Steelers, Texans. That would be your top 4 with the Chargers, Ravens, and Broncos at the moment. Bringing your Broncos there play Monday night. We'll get into that here in our picks here in a second. National of the NFC, you got the Lions, Eagles, Seahawks, Falcons still top 4. Then you got Vikings, Packers, Commanders. Like I said, the Bucs still there with the Falcons kind of there at tie for 4. But then you got the Vikings, Packers, Commanders, bringing it home with the Arizona and Los Angeles. They're 6-6. The Niners looking like they're going to drop 21-3. They had a chance there to score at the goal line. They did not get the job done there with it. It wasn't very good with it. Hey, Jimmy, just for a second here before we move on with it, I wanted to get your thoughts on college football. The playoff. It was good. I know we're NFL here, but just for a second.
Rev is also.
It was a disaster, man.
There was a lot. There was a lot going on Saturday. But here's my thing. Does Michigan need to be planting the flag in the middle of the horseshoe? No, they don't need to be doing that.
But do it anyway.
But if you're gonna be pissed off about them doing it after they beat you as a 21-point underdog on the road, like Jack Sawyer.
Well,
Jack Sawyer does not deserve any of the blame for the loss. But he deserves a lot of the blame for the ugly black eye that you just gave your. Not only do you lose that game in that situation as the number 2 team and as the biggest talent disproportion that this rivalry has been in the last 5 years, but then you're the cause of the ugly black eye afterwards. You're the cause of the Ohio State. Not only are they big losers in big games, Ryan Day, he is 47-1 against the rest of college football.
But he can't beat.
He is 1-4 against Michigan. And guess what? The last coach that did stats like that, Cooper, was fired after he lost his fourth or fifth time against Michigan.
I feel like that was the guy that was from Michigan before, Harbaugh, or
Harbaugh?
it was way back.
There was 3 or 4. They had Rich Rod. They had
no, it was before Rich Rod.
Oh,
it was the guy before Rich Rod. It was the older guy. He was the
guy
older
that was the coach for
Tom
Brady.
Yeah, that guy right there. He was there at the. The one thing I wanted to bring up with rivalry is I do like the playoff format that they would
Lloyd
do.
Carr. Lloyd Carr is the coach's name.
He seemed like he had a hard time with Ohio State at the end there too. What did you make of? There's something about rivalry that I do enjoy. That we had the upset of Ohio State. Does that mean? But they're still going to be in the playoffs, right?
They are.
I believe Ohio State could.
I still think that they're going to be there, but now they are not hosting. I feel like they're going to be an on the road team.
Would they be behind SMU if SMU won the ACC? So SMU
wins the ACC. SMU is the top 4 seed automatically.
You think top 4? Wow.
Because I believe Clemson's playing the playoff game because Miami also lost. And speaking of that whole situation, I'm sure Ohio State wish they could have had Kyle McCord playing based off of what he did against Miami on Saturday. Probably wish we didn't get rid of him.
350 and 3 touchdowns against number 6 Miami at home, and he said it. He knew what he was doing. He said at the very end, everything happens for a reason. Everything comes full circle. No, right now Ohio State, they're in the conversation, Darren, with the Alabamas, the Ole Misses, because you have 4 or 5 SEC teams that have 3 losses, but they played other really good SEC teams. Ohio State now has a loss against number 1 Oregon, which is not bad, but then your next loss is against 7-5 Michigan, who just became bowl eligible the week before. So I think that Ohio State is now, it's hard to say that they're going to go in under Indiana, but Indiana has 1 loss against number 2 in the country, Ohio State. I feel like Indiana's going to get a home state. Penn State's now in the Big Ten championship. Indiana's going to get a home playoff game. Penn State has the ability, if they win this Oregon game, they're going to get a top 4 seed as well. It's going to be the top 4 seeds right now because the Big 12 champion is going to be lower than 12 ranked because it's Arizona State and Iowa State. So it's 16 versus 18. So they're going to be the 5th conference champion in. They're not even going to host a playoff game. Boise State, if they win the Mountain West, is the higher ranked conference champion. They would get the 4th seed automatic bye. So it would be Big Ten champion, SEC champion, ACC champion, and then Boise State, Mountain West champion with the 4 automatic buys. Big 12 champion would be the 5th or 12th seed, last conference champion seed. They would be playing the number 5 seed in the tournament, which technically looks like it could be the loser of the SEC champion or Big Ten championship game.
Is Miami out no matter what?
I think Miami's done. Because Miami doesn't have a signature
I feel like they got a lot of.
Miami
pissed about that Cal loss. I'm still pissed about that.
Miami actually playing in the conference title game?
Miami can't play in they lost their ability to play in the conference championship game
about that loss to Cal.
Yes, SMU versus
Clemson in the ACC championship.
That should be a good game. I'm looking forward to that.
No, here's the thing: SMU should dominate that game. SMU, this is SMU's chance to prove the ACC was bad this year. Obviously, Clemson's able to fight their way back. They lost against South Carolina this weekend and still are in the ACC championship game. Miami screwed themselves because they played a cake schedule and then ended up picking up 2 bad losses to teams that they definitely should beat.
They had a lot of lucky wins, I felt like, during the beginning of the year.
There were the Minnesota Vikings.
Virginia Tech, Hail Mary.
Yeah, and the Cal one. I'm sorry, bringing it up a 5th time. I'm bringing it up a 5th time. I got to keep going to that one.
Was the band on the field, Darren?
I'm bitter about that one. I stay up till midnight. They still lost. The
band is on the field.
SMU's interesting because I just locally know somebody that is knows the athletic trainer there, and so we got to go to that Stanford SMU game this year. We got a lot of access to SMU, and so me and my son we're pulling for. I got a lot of gear and all that. We got to meet some of
that program's been through so much hell. They might been their first time of reaching national relevancy since the death penalty. Honestly, so.
Yeah. Well, that's their biggest game. This will be their biggest game in a while. They play Clemson there with it. So that'll be a big game, guys. I'm looking forward to kind of, as we do talk the Gridiron, we'll probably get some college football in here as we kind of mix it up.
Nico and I, another plug for Far End of the Bench this weekend. We're picking 7 conference championship games.
I like that.
5 that are going to be in the playoff, and then Conference USA and American. I know Tulane lost, so the American has no bid for the playoff yet, and Conference USA is not going to be there either. But we're getting people ready because instead of a bull pick'em show this year, we're doing a bracket pick'em show.
I like that.
It's going to be all 4 rounds of the bracket that we're selecting. It's going to be Jeremy. It's going to be Dom, hopefully. I know I got Dom confirmed. I'm still waiting on Jeremy to be confirmed. But we've done that the last 4 years, so this will be our 5th college football postseason pick'em. And we got our conference championship picks coming up this weekend.
And we got some big games along the way, so it'll be fun to do that with college football starting up. It's always a good time here as me and Jimmy get close to Christmas break. We always enjoy a little
14 days, Darren. 14 days.
Oh, I got 21, so hold on to me. I got 3 weeks, and then we got 3 weeks.
Well, it's 5 days. But it's 5 days this week, 5 days next week. Is it 5 days for you the week after?
I 4. I go 4. Yeah, I got 4.
Okay, it's 14. It's 14 days.
Don't
count the weekends.
All right, we don't count the weekends. I got you. We don't do that here. Hey, speaking of weekend, who you got tomorrow night? The Browns are not having a good record in Denver. It's not been good. How fired up are the Bo Nix guys? We go in Denver tomorrow. Do they clear it, or is Jameis Winston and the soul? Does his soul, the night, does he carry in the momentum, the love, the passion, the energy that will Mr. Winston bring to the table? It's a glorious night in Colorado, Denver. Do they get the win, or is your Broncos? You cannot lose this game if you want to make the playoffs. Or you're the Broncos. I feel like it's a big win. Big game.
Rev, I'm going to let you take this one first because you've been living.
Come on, Rev. They going Broncos?
Yeah, well, ultimately, Jameis is going to have to love playing in a high elevation, much as he liked playing in the snow. Though there's still going to be cold weather regardless, but it's kind of hard to bank on 2 really good Jameis Winston games in a row. And just with this whole situation where you want to go to a running game, but Nick Chubb, I feel like ever since he's come back, it feels like the knee injuries are starting to build up where he didn't have a bad game. He had 2 touchdowns last time, but he hasn't had the same spring that he used to have or the explosiveness that he used to have. And, yeah, this Denver team is firing on all cylinders. You got a defense that's very deep and filled with younger guys and names that perhaps on a national level people don't really know about, like Zach Allen having a great season on the interior. Jonathan Cooper, who earned a contract extension.
Yeah. Franklin Myers has been big inside too. I want to make sure because he stepped up in Allen's absence the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, Nick Bonito with double-digit sacks. Riley Moss, who's been a good CB2. Whereas it feels like Pat Surtain has taken the throw from Sauce Gardner as CB1. So along with that, you have like the no-name guys that would fly under the radar. And with Bo Nix playing up the way that he has, even with a limited core of Cortland Sutton really doing the heavy work and whatever receiver he feels like throwing to at the moment, maybe filling in and doing whatever his Sutton can't. I just feel like the way that the Broncos are firing right now, the Browns they kind of halfway gave up. At the same time, a guy like Jameis could still rally a team and kind of motivate a team, but there's just too much. Too much has gone wrong for the Browns this year for me to pick them right now.
Rev, I don't know if you heard, but the horse is prepared for battle.
Yeah, horse.
But my faith is in the Lord.
Yeah. I thank the Lord for my first time in the NFL to ever play
for the logo on the side of your helmet. I just realized that we don't have logos on the side of our helmets.
We don't have any decals on the side of our helmet.
We're not playing for the name on the back. We're playing for the name on the front. There we go.
I love how he isn't actually trying to be funny either. He's just legitimately.
That's just
him. That's just who he is.
It'd be weird to play for somebody like that as your quarterback too. At times, you're like, man, can we just tone it down just a little bit? I'm not feeling.
Just tell me the play. Just tell me the play. I don't need a motivational pep talk. We got 10 seconds left on the play clock.
We will run. We will run, wide two banana. We will run it well. We will do
it. He's seen the replacements, but he took that scene at the end. I wish I could say something classy and inspirational. That just wouldn't be our style. He's like, no, that's my style. That is my style. Thank you. I'm going to say something classy and inspirational before every single play of this entire football game. No, as I'm thinking about it, I have generations of Broncos fans, not only in my own household, but in my family. And thinking about this matchup specifically, this matchup made the generation of Bronco fans before.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I'll say 2 generations because my parents are technically, there's a generation of fans in between us, but this made my parents' generation fans of the Broncos. Fumble, the drive. That is the reason why the Denver Broncos are as relevant as they are today. John Elway had those 2 massive moments. They were able to win in the playoffs against Marty Schottenheimer and some really good Cleveland Browns teams. These are not those teams. And now I'm going to say that, Dan Reeves and John Elway, there's a lot of history there. But at this point, at the point that we're talking about when they were beating the Browns in those playoff games, that's not necessarily too far away from Bo Nix, Sean Payton. With what we've seen recently, I am saying that with all of the, authenticators in there, we could be looking at a rookie wall because this is the most football that Bo Nix has played in the last eight seasons. What do we say? He's a 10-year vet as a rookie because he's old and played how many seasons of college football? Everybody likes to throw that out there. He's not any older than Jaden Daniels. I think
he played 5.
I think he's like 3 years. He's 3 days younger than Jaden Daniels or something like that. 3 months older than Jaden Daniels. He's not that old. But Bo Nix, with the way that he's playing right now,
3 or 2 though in college, but yeah,
I mean, everybody does. That's the way that college football plays right now, especially as a quarterback. Penix is, I think Penix was the oldest quarterback that was drafted last year.
I believe, because he got injured twice at Indiana, and then he had transferred to Washington.
Rev, we got guys that we went in as I went in as freshmen with that are just finishing up their college career, and guys that were younger than me. Kendall Lightfoot came in 2 years after me.
Yeah, Joey just finished 7 years.
Yeah, and he's still there. He's the defensive coordinator at the high school right now. No, with the Broncos, the line has moved because when I was looking at it for our show last week, it was 5.5. It's already moved to 0.5 point. I don't know if Vegas is thinking something. The Broncos are debuting these new uniforms.
Look at these bad boys. Wow, look at these.
I don't know if it's going to be what we saw against the Falcons at home, but at home, Monday Night Football, this is the most excited that Denver has been for a football team in 8 years since the Super Bowl season. There's going to be some. There's a lot to go for if you're betting on this game. Why not cover the 6? Why not win by double digits against a team that the Browns? They've had a few good games and their defense is really good. Their defensive line is solid. A lot of guys that they picked up from the Bengals, and Myles Garrett likes to play against T.J. Watt. I don't know if he's going to have the same motivation this week, but he's going to have a lot easier of a matchup against Mike McGlinchey. It may be close, but with what I've seen from the Broncos recently, I'm sticking with my pick initially. I'm going with the Broncos.
So you guys go Broncos. Just, like I said, it is a big game. It'll be interesting to see. They can't lose a game like this. It just would be a huge letdown for them at this point. I don't want just going to be on a little bit here. That we'll look ahead to Week 14. The big game, guys. Honestly, we don't say this very often, Jimmy, but it is Thursday. It is Lions Packers. That is the big game of the week, the biggest of them. And obviously, it being on Thursday is not ideal, I would think, for most teams. But that is, to me, the by far biggest game of the week. There, you have some other big games like you have the Seahawks and Cardinals, Bills, Rams, and you have Chiefs, Chargers that will have some implications, but it feels like
it's the number one spot for the best division of football right now. That's what we have on Thursday.
And it would be a statement game, right, for the Packers. I mean, it would be a statement
and it's
game.
Also not a short week game because this is now, I mean, they have a full week.
True. That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point.
I just thought of that as we were going through it. Like I would rather see this with it happens. It's like when I'm in the classroom and I say something and some kid goes, "Oh my God. Oh my God, did I need to remember that for the next," and then it's already gone. Like, oh shit. You guys should have been here an hour ago. I taught this so well during third hour. It's incredible. Fourth hour, I'm sorry.
Did you guys just see that touchdown?
Well, I'm gonna get it up out here. Is it Bills? Bills go up again?
Oh, there's
a little Buffalo lateral that they just did right there with the receiver. Now he threw a dump off to the receiver, got stopped in his tracks. Then he lateraled it to Josh Allen, and he ran it in.
I'm gonna get it up here. I'll get it up here in just a minute. We'll get that up here, of course. Sunday Night Football. Bill 28-3. The Niners just getting. Me and Brian, Jimmy, I know you've been able to do a little far into the bench plugging. Far to the Fat Boy fadeaway we did this morning. Should Shanny be fired? There was a little topic there with it, so be sure to tune into that with it as well. Rev, I know that Lions-Packers game is a big one as well. So I think that's the biggest one. The Seahawks-Cardinals. It is a game where if the Seahawks win, they are kind of does feel like the West is theirs a little bit. It does kind of start to feel that way a little bit to me, but we'll see.
Yeah, it kind of feels like with the Packers and Lions are just jostling for positions where, yeah, you would like to have more fight when you're in terms of the Packers because the first one was a blowout. So definitely you just like to see more of a fight, whether win or lose. At that point, just kind of jostling because the Lions are obviously going to be in first place. Whereas, yeah, that Cardinals and Seahawks game is very vital for Arizona, who's kind of been in a bit of a slump lately where you don't want to fall too far behind there because Seattle's starting to pick up a little bit more steam. Defense is firing off on all cylinders there. Had a bit of an early scare against the Jets, but ultimately they're able to catch back up. A couple slip-ups from the Jets, of course. You kind of that was destined to happen there. So, yeah, Arizona has to – this is a must-win at this point if you're Arizona.
I got that touchdown up on the screen. You're right. That is just it kind of feels like rubbing it in. I kind of remember when a little spank ass Jimmy.
You ass.
Yeah.
Belt, you ass.
I think it happened against your Broncos, Randy Moss with the lateral. I think it actually happened against the Broncos. That's what it feels like.
Kelsey did one on Friday against your Raiders. So.
Oh, I know. That was a little bit more planned, or maybe not planned. But
I mean, it wasn't as much insult to injury as a ring around the Rosie a couple of years ago.
That was hilarious. 1, 2, 3, and go.
Hey, as a football players, right? There's like in basketball, there's like the crossover that gets somebody to fall over. There's that, there's moves, there's baseball, like there's certain things where you make a behind the back flip or something like that in the middle infield. Like if I'm a football player, like there's not, the juke move, obviously, if you're a running back, there's a way to, but this is kind of feels like
stiff arm. No, it's,
but Jimmy, this is 21-3 and then they do a little hook route and then you get a touchdown on a lateral to your quarterback. This would feel like a little insult to injury, though.
Think about the conditions too. I guess maybe that makes it worse, but I think it might make it a little bit better. Like we know that we can't really.
Brian Johnson, does this make it better?
That wasn't planned at all. That was some bullshit.
I was just nailed in a coffin, just turn off the TV.
Man.
Josh Allen was like,
are the Niners done then, guys? Are they done after
Did
this?
we put them on the list last week?
No, we said we had to wait. We weren't sure. Like, they're still 5-7 after this loss. Like, are we done with the Niners now? Are they done?
I mean, does anyone want to win the NFC West? Man, you have to ask that question first. Who wants to win the NFC West? If one of these teams gets it together, if not, if we keep getting episodes where the Rams look pretty good, and all of a sudden maybe Puka goes down for another game, and then Stafford has one of those weird Matt Stafford games, or if Seattle just has one of those random games where they kind of deviate back to like versions that we saw earlier this year. Like, have they figured something out here? Like, there's so many questions. Like, does anyone want to win this division? If not, San Francisco would still be.
They could still steal
5-7.
They feel bad though right now. It just doesn't. The energy doesn't feel good. It doesn't. They got Williams out, Bosa. It just doesn't feel good, Jimmy.
What has McCaffrey done? Has he killed me in one of my fantasy leagues and saved me in my other?
He had a good start, but then had that calf injury. Like, he got shaken up.
He's injured again. This is just the tail of my fantasy season now.
Yeah, same here. I have McCaffrey too. I gave up on my fantasy.
Winner, loser, Rev. Who do you got for winner of the week this week, week 13? Is there a team? Is it your Steelers? Is it Russell Wilson? Who's your winner of the week here?
My winners and losers of the week are actually going to go to individual players here. So, in terms of winner of the week, is going to go back to Seattle and what Leonard Williams did when it comes to just being overall.
Oh, that's mine too. Let's get it up on the board.
Had the record breaker too. So in terms of his stats, he had 4 tackles, 2 sacks, and then the 92-yard interception return was actually the longest return for a defensive lineman in NFL history. So
crazy.
Yeah, you gotta give Leonard Williams, who over the last couple of weeks he's always been a reliable guy throughout his career, kind of a borderline Pro Bowl, kind of right underneath that type of defensive tackle, but he's been a wrecking ball lately, and the interception return was only the icing on the cake there. However, in terms of my loser of the week, it's a guy who's actually been having a rough season all year, a guy who at one point many people believed to be the best kicker in the NFL, but at this point, he's just fallen off a cliff, and that's Justin Tucker.
Great call.
If you look at those 2 field goals, if you just look at the score right now, I believe the final score was 18-24. Lamar Jackson had 2. The offense only had 2 touchdowns on the day, both passing touchdowns by Lamar. So they could have had a better performance, but what type of game are we talking about here if Justin Tucker hits his field goals?
Oh, man, you're right. We didn't mention that enough at the beginning of that. You're right. We didn't. I saw funny. I'm an NBA guy, so I saw a funny tweet about somebody having Patrick Ewing in a Supersonics jersey, and that's what Justin Tucker's like. Basically, he's on the NBA jersey where he's on a different team at this point.
Man,
That's
washed.
Hey,
Tracy McGrady in the Spurs jersey.
Oh yeah, we got that. I had winner of the week as well with Williams as well. Here's the play up on the board here.
The line and bring pressure. Rodgers has it picked off by Leonard Williams.
Look like an athlete.
Just the second interception of the Big Cat's career.
The Big Cat.
Take it to the house? His own house. He sure is. A pick 6, and he flips the game.
Oh, man, what a play by Leonard Williams. Like you said, the speed. He said he's never ran that far in his life. Unbelievable that a big man has been able to survive that long. That was a hell of a play, one of those ones that you don't get very often in the NFL. That was my winner of the week as well. And I'm going to go loser again. I like to put a little salt on the wound when I can. Derek Carr had a chance to get the job done with the Saints again, and he fumbles at the goal line with 15 seconds left. Like I've been saying, people, he's not all that in a bag of chips. So it is what it is. I know the Raiders suck, but I'm just not like Carr would have solved our problem. So you know that, Jimmy, by this one. So who do you got for winners, the loser of the week here?
Losers of the week. The Ravens are a loser because in their division they've got another game behind the Steelers. The Bengals lose in another one. That's my other loser of the week is the Bengals defense. Joe Burrow is the first quarterback in NFL history to have 300-plus yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions over 3 games that he's lost.
Unbelievable. Crazy.
That wasn't today. He did have a couple turnovers, but the last 3 weeks leading up to this game, and that includes a bye week in between, that is something that's never happened before. So, yeah, Nico, I understand. This defense is probably the worst defense in NFL history, and I'm giving them all the shit that they deserve on their way out because this is absolutely god-awful. And Anarumo's not going to be the defensive coordinator next season, and they're going to have to hope that they replenish a whole bunch of talent. But that is my loser of Week 13 because you've scored 35-plus points in all of your home games this season, and you're 1-5.
We talked about your team a little bit, obviously with Rev there. To me, we talked about it last week. They're the most disappointing team of the year, and like I said, that's why my game ball went to Russell Wilson for the 414 yards. I know it's against your defense, which you said is pathetic, but it's still 414 yards. I thought he got my game ball.
That's like a 300-yard performance against an average defense.
What's the guy? Arsenal, the loser of the week. The Texans guy, the linebacker. Definitely losers of the week there for that one. Yeah, that's definitely loser of the week. I mean, I kind of surprised you got with a game ball. Anybody that gets a game ball too outside of winner of the week, just maybe a stat. Was there anybody that kind of stood out to you a little bit during the game? Maybe even on Thanksgiving, somebody stands out to you. I feel like
giving Geno Smith a game ball because Geno Smith always finds ways.
That's fair
in these tight division games to pull.
That
wasn't a division game. That was a tight game that it was against a team. The Jets are just a reason why you need a head coach. You need an adult with all of these very talented players because they're so high and low. Like you have that touchdown, then you get the PAT blocked right afterwards. You have the kickoff return for a touchdown, then you give up another touchdown on the other side. But Geno Smith did what he had to do, and they're winning football games and leading the division right now. So I'll give Geno Smith a game ball.
Yeah, and ultimately, you just can't let Aaron Rodgers also be the GM, your offensive coordinator, orchestrating the plays. Just when you just like, I feel like Rodgers wanted the power, but ultimately, when you give him too much of it, it's gonna lead to too many bad coaching decisions. It's gonna lead to him having too much power in the scheme. Where if his read's not open, then you basically have nothing else. But good bounce back win there for Seattle, definitely.
You got to get the one with you said Leonard Williams. Here, I just wanted to get this up real quick for you. I heard the CMC injury. We hate for this is from your guys' area, so you never want to see he's out, he's hurt. Like
that might be done for the season.
I think this is one where the Niners, like Jimmy, I didn't bring it up because we crossed them off the list. Like there wasn't much teams, but this might be the Niners are getting close. It just feels like this isn't their year. So obviously you don't want to see. I mean, the one thing
at this point, if something's lingering, it looks like that was like hey, something's lingering. if we're going to look like this against these teams, we might as well just get this figured out. So hopefully next season,
do you think his best days are behind him now?
I don't know about. I mean,
because running backs are tough. That's why I'm asking. It's
running
tough.
backs are tough, and it's a tough injury. It's tough injuries to come back from, and who knows what the final injury is going to be. I'd like to say, his best days of being the face of Madden and a guy that produces jaw-dropping. That's Saquon Barkley's time now. So maybe I would say but I still think, if he gets this taken care of, if he's able to get healthy, the dude is still very talented, can still be a very good running back on a team that has a shot.
Can it be like Henry and have another MVP seat, like top 5? Top 10.
Henry hasn't really dealt with a season-ending injury like this.
True.
So it's hard to put that expectation on him. I just hope that he has a life after football at this point, because you're right. That was a guy that in high school and growing up in college or in Colorado, he was a couple of years older than me. I think he's a year older than Rev. Like that was the best football player that I've ever seen live.
Guy, yeah.
I mean, I was there for a game where he scored a defensive touchdown on us. So yeah, I definitely the experience. Yeah.
The Niners do.
Just gotta hope for the best. You can't write his eulogy yet. So just hopefully the recovery goes well. Even if shell of himself is still such a guy where his ability as a route runner and as a receiver, there are other ways to use him where even if you lighten his workload as a main ball carrying running back, what he brings as a receiver can still extend his career, I think.
But do you think his electric days are over? I guess that's my thing. Is like, can he get back to where?
Here's the question to ask: is his younger brother going to have more years left in the NFL? Because his younger brother is playing slot receiver, like third or fourth receiver for the Commanders. So is his brother going to be in the league longer than he is at this point? I think that's the question to ask.
I'm going to say no, but I hear you on that. That's a good question to ask. It's an interesting one. I just thought with you guys being Denver there.
Oh, I've seen that dude knock my kick returner's helmet from the 20-yard line all the way through the back of the end zone on a kickoff. So
you see a lot with it over the years.
Speaking of that running back conversation, well, when it comes back to Derrick Henry, like that guy has had Frank Gore levels of just durability. And going back to high school, if you look at his high school numbers, he was getting 300 something carries a year. And the fact that you just look at his like carry count and his touch counter from high school to now, and just how much of a workhorse he's been over the years, like it just doesn't make sense how durable he's been. But hey, maybe that 6'2", 245-pound frame was just.
He took a shot today
for football.
He took a shot today versus the Eagles where he dove for a first round. Like early in the second quarter, he was just getting a half an inch, and boom, you could just hear the pop. And I'm like, oh my god!
Like how dense is that man?
You could even hear the crowd be like that. And then he just gets up. I'm like, oh my god! Like that is not a normal. I'd be like out for a year if you did that to me. Like that'd be so. We'll see CMC 28-10 Niners. What they got? Jimmy always says Sunday night. Maybe we get off the air. There'll be a little comeback, but I don't like the chances for the Niners tonight. Jimmy, you got far into the bench here this week with it. I got Fat Boy Fadeaway next Sunday. Rev, you're back with us. I hope that you can join us again here before me and Jimmy call it a season. You're always the best, man. I appreciate you taking some time to join us tonight on Talking the Gridiron.
Oh, yeah. Anytime I have some time in my evening, I got to hop back on. Chop it up with the boys, no doubt. It's
an open invite. You know that. It's open invite with it, Jimmy. We always love Rev coming on with it. He's one of the best. Your knowledge of the game is one of the best, too. Your Steelers are on fire, too, with it. So, Jimmy Pilato, we got a couple weeks here. We got Christmas time football. It's nice seeing the snow out there with Buffalo. We're looking to week 14, Jimmy. We're chugging along, my friend. We're almost there. So
it's wrestling season, Darren. I know that the NFL is still going on, but
not basketball for you.
I'm on the mat for. I have a dual Tuesday. I have middle school district championship Friday, and then I'm back on the high school season the Saturday. So I'll finish my tournament Friday night at like 10:30, and then I got to be at Arapahoe High School, which is it's not far from my house, but I got to be at the tournament at like 6:30, 7 a.m. for weigh-ins.
So, Jimmy, I got one quick question when it comes to wrestling. When it comes to wrestling collegiate, wrestling, and just this whole Gable Stevenson situation, what do you think about him going back after the failed WWE stint, after the failed stint in NFL training camp with the Buffalo Bills, not making it to the preseason roster? What do you think about him going back years later, even after winning the Olympic gold medal, to use his final year of eligibility as a 20-something-year-old going up against 19-year-old college kids.
Why not? I mean, he's still if he was on the Olympic team, most recent Olympics, he would have won a gold medal. That dude is still the best wrestler in the world at that weight class. So it's going to be fun to watch him wrestle in college. And then I think this is maybe like now we're going to see him wrestle on another international circuit, and maybe he does take the UFC. I mean, everybody was saying go UFC. I didn't think that he was going to be good enough to do WWE, and he's not Brock Lesnar.
I don't know how much he wants to take a punch in MMA. That's the thing. Like, he has the athletic capabilities, but
maybe he's just a wrestler, and being a wrestler isn't the worst thing in the world. He can be like that Cuban dude that was 50 winning gold medals.
What was his name? I forget that.
It just feels like college it just feels like going back to college is a step backwards, just kind of like rubbing it in.
Or he's going to become a head coach of a program the year that he's done in college wrestling. I don't know.
He'll be coach and player at that point. He'll be a coach.
He's done with he's out of eligibility after this season.
That's funny.
It is ridiculous. Like he was too good to be wrestling in college when he was a junior. His last season that he won his national championship, and now he's coming back as a 30-year-old man against these other heavyweights that are like barely 240 pounds. The dude is just he's sick. If I could get every single person in my wrestling room to wrestle like that, I would never lose a duel ever in my life.
You'd be a happy man if you could get that one. They know it's also wrestling here is the divisions in the NFL. There's a lot of wrestling to go in here in the last few weeks. We'll see if Rev's Steelers can hold off the Ravens, who look a little sluggish here in the AFC North. So hopefully, Rev, we can get you on in a few weeks. We got the Broncos, Browns tomorrow, Monday night. Big game out there in Colorado. Jimmy, I expect to see some good tweets from you and Nico tomorrow. Is Nico at the game tomorrow?
Nico's going to be live. I believe he's going to be there live.
All right, Nico. We'll be tuning in tomorrow. Boys, we'll see you next week with it. Rev, I want to see you soon with it. Week 14 next week. All right, boys. Rev, Jimmy Pilato, I'm Darren Breyer. Make sure you check out Far on the Bench. Make sure you check out Fat Boy Flavor, Variety Sports Network, Talking the Gridiron. Boys, we'll see you next week. Peace.